Ndryshim, and welcome to Inside Albania with me, Alice Taylor. We're just a couple of weeks away from the general elections, so I thought it was about time we sat down and got to grips with what's happening with the Diaspora vote, how is voting going to take place, who are the key players, what is the state of democracy in Albania. We're probably going to need more than an hour for this. I'm joined in the studio by current Socialist Party MP Lavdrim Krashy, who is not running this time around. I'm also joined by journalist, author and historian Erald Capri. He is running for one of the smaller independent parties. We're going to be getting down to the nitty-gritty of Albanian politics. Erald, Lavdrim, welcome to Inside Albania. Thank you for joining me today. I thought it was about time that we address the upcoming general elections. I've stayed out of it to a certain extent because it's just been chaotic. Everything changes day to day, but I want to give some information to our viewers about exactly what's going to happen, what's at stake, who's involved, but also a bit about yourselves as well. So once again, welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I want to start off with a few questions for each of you, and then we'll go into sort of a bigger discussion about what's going to happen in the next few weeks. Erald, let's start at the beginning. You studied in the UK. You were a Shqipnik scholar.
Yeah.
What was your experience like in the UK? And why did you come back to Albania? Was there ever a moment you thought, I'd rather stay in the UK, I think?
Many times. Well, it was the best part of my life, I think. Yes, 1 year and a half to study in London. And I used it that time amazingly, I remember. And still somehow marks me the time that I lived in UK. And I just mark just something. I was studying just in the first part of the day, and any free hour, I was visiting the museums and archives, and I got tens of thousands of pages of documents that related to history of Albania, and still have them. I have many laptops full of digital documents. I wrote 2 books, and I have plans to write many more. And as for that, I say it's the best part of my life was in London. But yes, it wasn't temptation. I remember once that I started a job with the idea that maybe I'm thinking to stay. It was hard. It's very difficult in UK.
In what way is it difficult in UK? I know it's difficult in UK, but I'm interested for you to explain to people,
Well, I was studying media communication, and to work in the media in UK, it's difficult. It's a different culture, different perception. And media was totally different way in the way how...
It's very nepotistic as well. They look at sort of who your parents are, where you went to school. There's this network of sort of, if you went to this school, then yes, you can come and work here. Or it's quite a closed industry unless you know somebody.
I think it's everywhere like this. It's kind of a club everywhere. I mean, media, it's a kind of, different from the other part of the sector. In UK, there is no example about that. But I started a fellowship in BBC. In that time, they had the section in Albania, but they closed it. So it was difficult to stay inside the BBC. I mean, it was very hard and big competition to work there.
Yeah, it's tough. It is a tough sector, and especially there as well,
But the opportunities that the UK had, it was amazing. And I met a lot of Albanians there, successful one.
Yeah. Do you ever wish you'd stayed, or do you ever think about going back there, or do you see, Albania as...
Well, there is one of my plans, maybe in future, that I always wanted to do a PhD, especially in history. And actually, I've been in contact in many universities, and they wanted me to start a PhD. But it's difficult also that, because now that I have a family, I cannot leave them here and to go there to study. But maybe I think that in my third life, maybe after 50s, if I have more time, why not to go back and to do some PhD there? I love it.
Have you met in London? I think her name's Patricia Nugent, and she has this collection of books about Skanderberg.
I heard about her.
God. She invited me to her house. And
Albanian Society, yes.
Yeah, she took me into her basement, and it's floor-to-ceiling bookcases of these, and she was taking out these books about Skanderberg that written in German, in French, in
In
Latin,
Latin,
in
yeah,
English,
in
that are
English.
500, 600 years
Yeah.
old. And she was just handing them to me like this. And I was like, don't I have to wear gloves? Isn't there like humidity control? No, 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 none of that. And it was really nice, actually. She bought a copy of my book and she put it next to a copy of Edward Lear's book. She had an original Edward Lear book, and he's like a relative of my aunt, my great aunt. So, and I was a bit like, what is, but anyway, back to the collection of books that she has. If you have to go and see it.
I've heard about this collection. I
amazing.
hope to have a chance to
I will
visit one
introduce you.
day. Oh, it would be great. It would be great. But there are lots of things to see, especially in London, even for Albania.
Yes.
There are clubs, there are cultural societies, but even in museums, you find a lot of remarks about Albania. Even a British museum.
Yes.
London and UK is very welcome from Albanians, I think. And they've been very good integrated in society.
Yes.
Albanians are very hard working people. And some of the most successful people of Albanians live in
Yes,
UK.
that's true.
I remember once I met a guy who was only 37 or 36, and he was managing investing funds of 10 billion pounds.
Wow.
And he was simple Albanian.
Yeah.
It was great, and he was working in Canary Wharf, A very simple guy. I mean, one of the guys that just stay quiet and do his
Yes.
job. But when you think that he just 10 years ago he went like an immigrant in UK, and then with one signature he has a possibility to do 10 billions of pounds investment, and say, wow, Albanians are amazing.
Yes. Love Dream. We all know, you lived in the UK for a very long time. You worked in the civil service there. You came back to Albania. You entered politics. You're not running this time around. Why?
Well, it's not always
to the point.
straight to the point, and you'll get exactly straight to the point back. It's not my decision. It is not what I wanted to happen. After all, I left the United Kingdom after 27 beautiful years that I spent in the UK. It is what made me who I am. But that's how politics works. And politics, in 4 years in Albania, I've learned that it's very tough, but it's very tough for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
I don't think it is how it should be. People should be valued for who they are, what they represent, what vision they have, and especially above everything else for me, it's important that politicians have integrity, both in terms of their professionalism, how they conduct themselves while they do politics in their active lives, but also what vision they have for the country, for the constituency, for the people at smaller communities, and then it goes up to the national level. Unfortunately, with a great degree of sadness, I have to say, that after 4 years, in fact, it's taken me far less than 4 years to realize that some of the worst characteristics of politics worldwide are applied in Albania. So coming back to the direct question, it is not my decision. In fact, far from it. I wanted to be a representative of the community, be it in my own constituency of Dibber or in Tirana or anywhere else. But at the end of the day, none of us are irreplaceable. And this is the system that we have. It's a system that I profoundly dislike in terms of the political system, in the way in which political parties select their candidates. There is almost no democracy in the way in which they are selected, but also the political system, the way in which we elect. So firstly select and then elect our members of parliament. Of course, I'd very much like the first past the post system, although it's used by far less countries in the world. So it's only 1/3 of the countries in the world that use first past the post. The United Kingdom is at the forefront of it. But it doesn't mean that because it's in a minority, it's not the best system. And also historically, and I'm referring historically to the past 35 years in Albanian politics, it has actually produced the most stable parliaments and the most stable governments. Some people willfully or through ignorance, they forget that the role of elections is the best thing that elections produce is the essence of it is to produce a new government.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean a new party gaining power, but it does mean a new direction,
yes.
a new people, a
Yes.
new set of people who have fresh ideas, who have a vision for the country, and above all, as I said, who have the integrity to carry on what they promise into government, to introduce policies and procedures, but above all, to introduce legislation that is fit for purpose and legislation that can last for a long time. It is not unheard of in Albanian politics, and I've experienced it firsthand for the last 4 years, but since 1990 we've seen it where legislation has been produced that has had to be amended within weeks and months, definitely years in most times. And for me, that is reminiscences of the past, of communism, where the way in which they actually wrote, let alone scrutinized and discussed legislation, was very, very poor. Having said all this, I don't want to be all critical, although criticism is a good thing. And I think that by being critical within your party, within parliament, within the society, criticism is, as long as it's constructive, not destructive, criticism is what keeps politics going. It could be perhaps one of the reasons why I'm not running this time around.
I was just about to ask, do you think, because I've known you always as being constructively critical even about your own party, and I'm wondering if Albania is ready for this, because, and I'm talking about all parties, it's very much about the person leading it and everyone falls in line, and I think this is the same for every party. And this, I think with you, I've heard you say things that I've never heard from similar people in that position, and I'm wondering if you think that is also behind it. But also my other question is this the end of politics for you in Albania? Would you start your own party, go to another party, run independent? What are you going to do now?
If that is the reason why I'm not reselected to run again, I consider it to be a reward. I consider it to be a medal for me, because I have never compromised with two main principles, and they are the vision for the country, so what I think should happen within the party and then within the country, and the integrity with which you carry that on. Now, if for those two reasons I'm seen as a too strong of a critique, providing critique to the government, or to my own party, or to my parliament, because I have a lot of criticism, for example, about the way in which parliament works. For example, Alice, we have a situation in Albania, and I think it's unique. I have no information about some awkward countries like North Korea, Iran, or some others, but we are one of those countries where we have elections in May, for example, so in less than 3 weeks' time we'll have elections. However, the old parliament continues until September of this year. So 5 months later, the same MPs who are no longer MPs, they continue to represent people. And frankly speaking, they continue to get paid, that includes myself, continue to get paid for the work that they don't do. Now, you don't find this in any other democracy. And they should...
The transition on power in Albania is 4 months.
But it's paid summer holidays, you know.
Well, that's a very long holiday. I'm sure that's why there's floods. Lots of people want to become MPs without actually knowing what it means to be an MP.
Yes.
As you know, to be an MP, our job is very easy yet very difficult, because usually easy things are very difficult. So our job is to make legislation that is in the interest of the nation and the interest of the electorate that has actually elected you. Not only those who have voted for you, but also those who have voted against you, or those who have actually abstained and not voted at all.
Yes, to get
you
them
represent
on side.
everybody while you are elected and serving as an MP. And I see again another criticism, and if I hope that the current government, or any future government for that matter, doesn't take any measures, because Albania is notorious for these things. So if you criticize too much, then you you can expect retaliation. I don't mind, I don't care, frankly speaking, because the times when people had to put up or shut up with whatever was done, for me, are long gone. And I don't want my people, I don't want my children, I don't want any future generations to go through what I went through, and to go through what our previous generations went through. So, because for me, democracy is about saying what you think, saying it openly, yes, saying it in a nice way, and as we said, already agreed, criticizing constructively, because sometimes the worst thing you can do is always be critical, but not provide a solution. But being a constructive critique is really good and healthy for democracy.
Yes. Now, from leaving politics to entering politics, you are running as a candidate this time around. How did this happen? Where did the idea come from? What's driving it? What's your...
Well, I'm come from journalism and studies of history and my activism, especially knowing the past in communism times, which is very important for Albania because our society almost done nothing to remember.
Yes.
And yes, I see something as natural. I mean, if you are an activist, especially, joining in politics is like kind of a mission. You have to serve the interests of the people, and in politics is the only way to change people's life. And this is very important. And for me, it's much more easy in a sense because I'm running in opposition and in a small party. I'm one of the persons who has been criticized with this government from years now because, and I believe that now Albania lives in a state capture in every meaning. I mean, everything is controlled. We see that even though we are in the middle of a campaign, there is almost no campaign. You know, we just have some events, no political debate. You know, nothing happens really. Even some people speaks about the rotation, but they don't speak about real change of this country. We had a couple of rotation in Albania in the last 34 years, but not real change. Okay, we've been improvement since 90s, but Albania still is the most corrupt and one of the most poorest country in the Europe. We saw that in the last 12 years, according to Eurostat, 700,000 Albanians got permission to work in European Union countries. So almost 1 million Albanians left the country.
Yeah,
And that is terrible.
it's a lot. It's...
So first of thing, me as a new candidate, I'm speaking for things differently totally from the other parties. You know, Alice, everyone in Albania is saying just one thing. With the government, we're gonna solve any problems in the country. We say that government is the problem. We are one of the countries when government runs everything. You know, if you see even the list of top 100 companies in Albania, 90 of them are direct connected with the government, with the permission of the public works. You know, we are a country when we have the highest paid administration in Europe. And a country that doesn't have a logic, you know, the average payment in a public sector is higher than in the private sector. That means that the economy is captured. We don't have a real capitalism. And we say that the only way to reach people, because for us economy is the first, we speak about economy, is that people to have much more money in their pocket than government's pocket. And we say that better to have in people's pocket than in government's pocket. It's for that we say that we have to reduce by half the taxes. We have to save more than 1 billion euros from what the government spent in the public administration. And we have to support the businesses to grow the economy. That is the only way. And this is also, you know, a war with mentality.
So why a smaller party? And not, I understand you say there has to be a rotation. There hasn't been. It's been the same sort of two parties rotating. But I think there's a train of thought as well with some politicians. They think, well, I'm going to pick one of these two because then I have more chance of getting into a position. What was your thought process in choosing the party that you chose?
Well, for me, it's very important to be a representative of people in the parliament. It doesn't mean to be directly to the government. One of the problems that even small parties have in Albania, they think like the old parties. They're speaking like they're going to be in government to do, you know, schemes and to be in compromise with the government. No. And actually, we are talking to especially target to businesses and to people who want to work and to be more independent from the government, and to say that we're going to speak about for you and to work only for you. And one of the problems that we have in Albania is that we don't have a truly opposition. Okay, we have tens of MPs in opposition, but many of them don't speak in parliament. They have interest. They have.
It's fragmented. They're all fighting with each other. It's
okay, that is one way. But when it comes to important issues, they don't speak.
Yeah. One thing I've been a bit disappointed with, which is some of the smaller parties, not your party, I must say, but the language, the way that some of the leaders and candidates speak is very much in the old style.
I mentioned that.
Very aggressive, very
I mentioned
like, and I was listening to some of them speak, and they talk, and they're just talking about what the other party, well, you've done this, you've done that, this party's done this, and I'm like, okay, cool, but what are you going to do differently? Like, you are speaking like an angry old man, but yet you're claiming to represent the youth of the country.
don't
Like,
have a
this
vision,
I've seen
yeah.
this in several, and I find this really disappointing. It doesn't make me want to
It is
vote
also
them, to
for
be honest.
me. It is also for me, and I mentioned many of them thinks and speaks like the old. They don't
Yes.
have a vision.
Yes.
Everyone still of them thinks that with the government want to resolve everything. That is not possible. We are the only party in Albania that are truly right-wing party, and we believe that government is a problem in this country. If we have less government, less power, if government should not decide who's going to be rich and who's going to be poor, then economy will be grow. And this is the only way to grow economy, the only way the people could have more money in their pocket. This is simple. This is our vision.
Left Dream, any comments on that? And then
Now,
I have another question.
I was trying to work out what political party he represents, and I get it now.
Mundësia, Grënsha.
Of course, the only true right-wing party. You see, for me, Alice, politics is a mission. Politics is a service. Members of parliament or even candidates, there are nearly 1,000, more than 1,000 candidates. They are people who are seeking to become public servants, not to be in a position where they can abuse power from, which is what has happened in Albania forever, really, but definitely for the past 34 years. So politicians need to see themselves as missionaries of their ideas, their vision for the future of the country. But I insist, integrity is extremely important, because you have nowadays, for example, during the campaign, I don't know about Mundësia, but I am certain that you have also seen there are candidates who are actually fighting for their political life, but not through politics. They have to deal with the judiciary. But yet they represent political parties to become members of parliament only for them if democracy works and if a judiciary continues to become more and more independent. We have a new judiciary system which the political class, if there was one thing, if you were to ask me what is the one thing that they have achieved in the past 35 years, I would say the attempts that are being made, the efforts that are being made to have a political free, so no influence from politics in terms of the way in which justice is delivered to people. After all, people want justice, and it doesn't just mean the institutions that we have, the Special Prosecution Office, the Special Court Service, etc., but in day-to-day life for people. People want to have justice when they go to hospital, public services, or when they go to the local authority, to the councils to get services. People want to see justice when they go to universities or when they travel by public transport. Healthcare, far more important, of course. But we don't see any of this. Yes, there has been improvements, and I quite agree with you. But who are we to compare with 30, 40 years ago? That's the purpose of democracy. That's why we have elections every 4 years, not every 40 years, not like in communism. And I appreciate you're a historian, so you know far more than I do on this subject. But in the principle in communism was that the leader will be the leader until he either dies or he's declared a traitor to the nation.
There's a coup d'etat.
A coup d'etat within the party.
Yeah.
They should be, I mean, people should refuse that type of politics. I'm not naming names, but I'm sure that we agree. You've been here for nearly 8 years now, and you've seen the same faces. When I go to the UK, and I go very often, every time I go, I see new faces in government. Every time I go, I see new faces.
Someone gave me an update on British politics the other day because I don't follow it. And I was like, but who are these people? Well, he's not the Prime Minister anymore, you know? And I didn't know because they changed.
We have had 7 Prime Ministers in the United Kingdom since 2010.
Yeah. Which is not
Only
necessarily
2.
a good... I'd say that's overkill.
Well, probably there was an inflation this time around
Liz Truss, she didn't do too well.
of prime ministers. But what I'm trying to say is that when people seek change, that is the best thing that politics produces. Democracy produces a new government, And as I said, not necessarily from a different party, but also new
real
ideas
But you
coming
know, I've
onto-
spoken to lots of people, and I'm kind of on this train of thought myself as well. And no disrespect to the smaller parties, because I really support the emergence of smaller parties and independent parties. But there's also this thing of, I look at the main opposition coalition, I think, oh my God, what a mess. You know, this is it's a mess. Are you potentially going to be in prison if you make it to prime minister? You know, what's going on here? And then I think, or I could have more of the same, because it's stability. There's not going to be the chaos of a government changing, the whole country coming to a standstill. You know what you get. You know how it's going to be. And I think a lot of people think like that as well. They're scared of this idea of change, the chaos that it brings. Because, you know, if the opposition comes into power, everyone in public administration is going to lose their job. the country's going to...
I see your point, but I don't think that could be possible. And I tell you why. Because some of the things that have happened in the past 12 years, and I'm not taking political lines here, so I'm not going down political lines, but for example, I can't see teachers lose their jobs. I can't see doctors, nurses, police officers, army officers.
But I think people
lose
in
their jobs.
positions, higher positions...
Tens of thousands they are removed. That we know this history
I mean,
in Albania.
and you know this, I know, although you're far younger than I am, but you know this, that this is something that started to happen in early 1990s. Unfortunately, no political party in Albania that has gained power has had enough power within itself to actually make them independent. Public services are services for the people. They should be there providing a service regardless of who is in power and who is the opposition. Opposition often, and I know that you are from a party that is the opposition, they don't realize, I think, how much power they have, which is the power of scrutinizing the government for the right reasons, to make sure that the government does what it says it will do, so to keep to its promises, but also what is in the interests of the public. And we hardly see this.
No,
in my
they need
4
to
years
spend more time pushing for
absolutely.
change rather
Have
than
you
throwing
seen
mud.
in the
It's
campaign, for
tiring.
example, I don't see any party leader explain, let alone candidates. I don't see any candidates, but even party leaders explaining to the people what is the manifesto of their party and how's it costed. Why is it important that I, as a citizen of this country, would I be better off, for example, paying a flat rate of tax, 10%, I think, proposed by the
a lot of people don't even know
opposition?
what they pay.
You proposed 8%.
Okay, 8. You can play with numbers, but at the end of the day, what people want, and as a voter, as a citizen of the country, I want to know if immediately, if I had the choice of 8 or 10, I'd go for 8.
Okay, I'll answer
So
that.
most people will go for 8. But what I'm trying to say here is not singling out as
you made a
political
point.
parties. I have a lot of respect for new political parties, because I think that's what should happen in a democracy. And especially this happens when within the party there's no space for you to express your views and to express your opinions.
That's
and
one
to
of the
express
points.
your feelings. That's how smaller political parties emerge from within the parties. And I'm sure that will happen to the Socialist Party as well. Because, God forbid, we won't be in power for 40 years, as long as the Communist Party of Albania was. We've been there for 12. Yes, I know we're fighting for a 4th term, but then all political parties fight a campaign in order to win the elections. But I hope that we don't go down the lines of communism, where one political party remains in power for decades and decades and decades, because it just decays and decays and destroys democracy.
How do you respond to this? And also, following on from that, I want to know, how do you see the campaign going in general, not just your party, but others as well? So start with your response to Lavrin.
Lavrin made a point. We are in a campaign that is incomparable in the sense that we don't have the same opportunities. Really don't have. Lavrin mentioned that, for example, I haven't heard about your manifesto, and somehow he's right, because we don't have the same opportunities that the other party has, especially in media. It's for that here I'm very appreciated to you for inviting to me. It's difficult. It's very difficult. I mean, big medias here support the two biggest parties, and for the rest, no. And for us, it's becoming very, very difficult to express our views and our thoughts. Even that we never go in debates because, ruling party forbids the debates, public debates and any kind of debates. So this is not a normal democracy. Without mentioning the other problems, I mean, we know we live in a country who is captured. Economy is captured, big medias are captured, the other part of society are captured. And so it's not easy to do politics in this situation. But we say this, that we need a starting point. The polls now shows that we are the third party, and maybe we could have a parliamentarian group in the next election, at least 7 MPs. And this is very, very important to start. No one did that before, just a year to formation a party and to win such MPs. And we think that this is going to be a great point to have at least a truly opposition, because we mentioned also the opposition never been reformed. We want it to be reformed because we have the same people in politics since the 90s. I'm 38 years old. I was 4 years when the communism fell. There are same people in the politics, Rama and Berisha. The same.
How do you anticipate the impact of the diaspora vote on smaller parties?
I think...
Have you been able to measure any voting intent from the diaspora?
I think will be a big fiasco. I'm sorry to say that.
In what way?
In what way? That this is a project, and the way how they constructed to vote with mail, totally what Rama wanted. And I
How
think
would you have done it differently?
differently, that we could have some representative, 4 or 5 people from diaspora, they could elect it directly there and to represent Albanian in diaspora directly in the parliament. But not to collect 250,000 votes to vote directly in Albania, when months with of ministers and power people from government stay in diaspora and registering people.
So you mean they would vote for diaspora representatives rather than voting for an MP in Scrapa, but
Exactly.
they live in Canada?
And actually, for example,
sense.
in the last, in this parliamentary session that we have these 4 years, Lavdrim was directly the person who came from diaspora, from UK. Now that we have 250,000 people to vote, who could elect 20 new MPs, actually we could have no one from diaspora, because big parties, they never put people from diaspora in the
I
list.
think there's one, you said.
I think there is one. Now, of course, the
One, but not for
question
sure.
of, almost certainly not to win. But nevertheless, because, of course, diaspora is very close to my heart. And I've spent my 4 years, if there's one subject I've spoken most about, is diaspora and the right to vote, which is a shame in a way, because it shouldn't be left for so late. 35 years after democracy was introduced to Albania, Albanian citizens living abroad did not have a right to vote. However, we are where we are. I quite agree that there are certain aspects of the law, of the code, as they call it here, because they give it an old name.
Electoral code.
The worst electoral code in the world.
I hate names that that have reminiscences of the past, the communism. It is one of the things that has hurt this nation more than anything else. And they still, I mean, for example, personally, I don't even agree with the name that we are given, deputy. To me, it's member of parliament.
Because I automatically think
Member
deputy of the Communist Party.
Yeah, exactly.
So they took it
Exactly.
from communism
Comrade or something.
Exactly.
and they just fast forwarded it onto democracy. That's not democracy. That's using the same principles as in the past. Congress for parties. There are so many terms. I'm not actually used to them. And thank God, for 4 years, I haven't gotten used to them, because I haven't made a single attempt to even get used to those terms that they used in the past. But coming back to diaspora vote, it is a historic achievement, what has been achieved, because let's not forget that until July of last year, no diaspora could vote from where they are.
And people have been asking for it as
And
well.
people have been asking for it for decades. The only people who could cast their vote and make their opinions known were those who travel to Albania.
Yes.
And you're talking about hundreds, not even thousands of people.
To come
that
from
have made
Canada or the
to
US,
come to
I
Canada,
mean,
US,
it's-
forget it. To come from Greece and Italy.
Maybe.
They've done some things, both political parties, the entire political class in Albania, some of the things that they should be ashamed of themselves, what they've done in Greece and Italy by bringing people over in order for them to vote. But now that situation has changed. Is it ideal? I completely agree with you. It's far from being ideal. But is it better than what it was before? Far
Is it
better
a first step to
it is a
getting it
first
right
step in
next?
the right direction. And if I could just take one or two things that I would have done differently, for example. Firstly, allow more time for people to register. We only are allowed 7 weeks. Even our other Albanian country,
I'm
nation,
not that organised,
Kosovo,
to be honest, either. You know.
Kosovo. But that's very important, the length of time you allow people to vote, and
I
also the
wouldn't have been able to.
campaign that you do to encourage people to vote. It was almost non-existent. Do you see, for example, the CEC, Central Election Commission? If you see their news conferences, for example, only about 200 people view them. So how is the message going to go to people?
I saw adverts in bus stops telling people in the diaspora how to register to vote. I'm like...
Exactly. How the hell are they going to... I mean, and most people from diaspora don't actually use our public
Unless they expect
public
their
services.
auntie to like take a picture of it
Exactly, and send
them.
it to them. But with all its restrictions and limitations and weaknesses that the system, the code has, it is a first step. And I hope it's a first step in the right direction. And I really hope that whenever the next elections is, because there's no guarantee that it will be in 2029, it could be 2026.
You never know.
2027,
Yeah.
you never know. That's democracy, that's how it works. So whenever the next election after this is, far more people register. And that we need to make the law more flexible, more inclusive, so that more and more people, ideally 2 million of them who live abroad, should register to vote. And then, of course, without going into too much detail, the way in which the ballots were posted to them, the way in which they are receiving or not receiving them, as the case may be. We know we have issues with DHL in Greece, for example, where that is the second biggest country with Albanians who have registered. So all these things, I really hope that politicians, political parties, politics, the Albanian society, civil society, everyone will learn lessons from the way in which we introduced and implemented this legislation in order for it to be far more improved for the next elections, whenever they are. There are examples around. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
There are examples of how, I mean, let's be honest and direct. I can look you in the eye, I can look everybody in the eye. Not all politicians wanted diaspora to vote.
No,
In fact,
because it's out of their control in a way.
Exactly. I can't put a percentage.
And you can't poll it.
I can't put a percentage, but even with my colleagues in Parliament, I've heard more from people who oppose it
Yes.
than those who actually support it.
Makes them nervous.
It makes them nervous. They can't control. It's different. The way in which you campaign, with all due respect for us Albanians who live in Albania, because I live here now, but there is a difference. The way in which you speak to the diaspora in London or New York, in Paris or Rome, is different to that how we speak to them here.
I don't want to do a prediction, but you know what could happen, Alice? I believe that majority of people living in Albania, they're going to vote for opposition party, and majority of people in
Diaspora will vote for the ruling party. Yeah.
because that was the system they designed is a system that you have to capture and to find people to register only for 7 weeks, and government has so much potential and resources to do that.
I want to ask you as well, you said the electoral code is the worst electoral code in the world,
Yeah.
but I want to tie that into, just to explain to some of our viewers, you know, after the voting ends on the 11th, what happens next? What is the process? What problems do you see with this process? When do we expect to get results? And how does that tie into you saying it's the worst electoral code in the world?
Well, if we got elected, one of the advocacy that we're going to do in Parliament is to change the electoral code. It's very important that this is a mixed up Spanish electoral code designed only for Spain because of the internal problem of the Spain. But we have like 12 countries inside one country because we have 12 regions. We are totally different.
Unequal, exactly. Unequal.
So you should have a different strategy for 12 regions.
Yes.
I mean, it's terrible. And actually, you could have tens of thousands of votes, and you could not get even one MP. But and this is designed only completely for the biggest party. I think that one of the advocacy that everyone should do it is to have a truly democratic system to represent people in this country. in the past, we had far more better systems. For example, we had the majority, 100 MPs were electing directly, like in UK, and 440 MPs were coming from a different system of collecting votes as political parties, so you could have a balancing. And actually, before, when we had much more party in parliament, we had much more democracy and stability. Now that we have only two biggest parties who control power, especially socialists, for 12 years, we have less democracy, less freedom, more economic capture, and bigger problem with corruption. So this idea that, listen, with two big parties we're going to have stability, actually the 30 years in Albania show that no, it's not true. It's not true.
But the vote counting process.
Vote counting
This
process.
is what, 'cause I remember the last elections. I worked 36 hours straight, and everyone,
terrible.
they're tampering. They've done this. They've done that.
Exactly.
Is there anything in place this time around?
It's
Unfortunately, there isn't.
Okay.
So it's the same system as in 2021 or 2017 or 2013, 2009, 2009, etc. And the main issue, sorry, I can't stop being critical today. The main issue is the counting officers.
Yeah.
They represent political parties.
Yes,
So they are
this
nominated
is-
by political
yes.
parties. It is, again, one of the rare countries that does that. Vote counters should be professional, independent individuals
Yes.
who follow a set of rules that has been agreed, a policy or procedure, whatever you want to call it, and it is their responsibility, so their civic duty, but also they get paid to do it actually
Yes.
on the day, and they get paid quite
Jury service.
like the jury service in the UK. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We have a different system in terms of judiciary here, but so basically, as was already mentioned, Albania, although it's such a tiny country, even they broke it into 12 smaller pieces even. So 12 regions in the country, and even the diaspora vote, because I quite like the idea that diaspora should have their own number of
Yeah.
MPs. And if you judge by the numbers, diaspora should really have 25 members of parliament. And 25, according to this useless political system that we have in Albania, they should have 25 in what we call the closed lists. This system is such a complicated stuff
I
that
don't get it.
nobody actually gets it.
I've been reporting on it for 8 years,
we've
two
been-
elections, I'm still not
exactly,
sure.
and we've been talking for nearly 40 minutes, and we haven't even spoken about open and closed lists.
Yeah.
But let's leave it there because it's better to stay there and untouched. In terms of the system, so people who vote depending on the region, on all 12 regions, including votes from diaspora. So their vote, wherever they are, whether they vote in, their vote will be counted for the constituency that they have the last address in Albania. For example, Dibër, Tirana, Gjirokastra, Korça, etc. And after the votes are counted, then they decide how many MPs each political party gets. Again, I think that's simple actually, because you just divide it by the number of MPs. For example, in my constituency, in Dibër, to make the conversation easier, if 50,000 people voted, that means you need 10,000 votes for one mandate. And whoever gets 10,000, and I agree with your point earlier on, because even if you get 9,500,
You get zero.
you don't get an MP because you don't pass the threshold. So now they have improved in the sense that, because in the past they used to get elections after a week, after 2 weeks, after 3 months even. Based on the results in 2021, I think it took us about 24 hours.
Yeah,
And within the first 24 hours, you get an idea. You don't get a final result, but you get an idea of who is the opposition,
You get the trend of votes.
and you get the trends, and who is the official opposition and the official governing party. And I'm hoping that this time there's a little bit, and this is one of the things that these new political parties have brought in, this new energy that they've brought into the political system. So there'll be more interest, whereas in 2021 is either right or left.
Yeah, I don't even remember who was.
Although, to be honest, I think they've confused sides.
Actually,
Yeah,
The left
it's
is
not
right and the
proper
right
right
is
or left.
well, I personally think the left is right and the right is left.
Yes, I said this to a certain leader of a right party, and it didn't go down too well. But I stand by it.
Because political leaders, so if they like something that comes from the left, they say, I'm a left-wing political party. If they don't like it, so depending on what reels they see, so if they see Reagan or Margaret Thatcher, for example, they say, oh, I'm right. But then if they see Tony Blair or somebody else, then they go
It's
left.
like I said, some of the election pledges that have been coming out in the last few days. I think certain people have been running out of ideas, and it's like, oh God, what am I gonna promise today? Right, I'm gonna promise anyone born on a Tuesday after 4 o'clock gets this, or blah blah blah. It's just bizarre that they're making some of these things up. Okay, we are running out of time. There is so much more we could have talked about, but I want to ask maybe a slightly thorny question last. What do you reckon the results are going to be? Is it going to be a landslide win for one side or the other? Is it going to be too close to call? Are we going to end up with a coalition of parties having to form to make a government? I'm going to start with you, Rad. What do you think?
Well, we hope to have a situation that Rama could not get more than 71 to form a government. But according to the latest poll, even for barometer here in Euronews, that might be difficult. But still, we have to wait. But I kind of see that if this could happen, maybe we could have a big coalition, of DP and SP. Trust me.
Of DP and SP together?
Yeah. But of course, trust me, because many people
I'd love
say
to be a fly on the wall in those negotiations.
many people ask me, okay, you could have, for example, as Mundisia party, you could have some MPs in the next parliament, but what are you going to do? We form a coalition? We say no. Our vote is totally from opposition, and we're going to stay in opposition. And if we kind of be in a situation that no one has the numbers, trust me, they're going to find each other language to form a government. But listen, for example, inside of
That's like a popcorn
DP
moment,
list, you have 5 or 6 MPs that come from, Liberty Party of Ilir Meta. They have different political control. No one knows what they're going to do. So we might have a big surprises if a big party
But do you think
not
it's going to
get.
be close?
I think opposition and Socialist Party are close in the numbers. It's that the political system doesn't let you big opportunities in order, to have a big coalition, for example. And actually, the way how we have the system right now was proposed by DP from opposition. Terrible, unimaginable. But I think that the big surprise of the next election will be the new parties.
Yes,
And
I see them in a
we
stronger
hope,
position than the previous.
according to the numbers, we're going to be the third party for the first time with at least 7 MPs, and
What
that is history.
What I found interesting from the recent barometry numbers was that more people like the smaller party leaders more than they intend on voting for them, which was by huge margins.
Yeah, but
which
in
is
votes,
really
it
interesting.
doesn't.
No, it doesn't translate. If it translated to
because
votes,
it's still
Sali Berisha was in 4th position.
it's part of the big, terrible mentality that we have, Alice. One of the big challenges that we have is with people is that I like you, I want to vote you, but they're gonna steal your vote, because as we mentioned, that DP and Socialist they counted votes in the tables, and lots of people believe that despite of what you vote, your vote is going to be stealed in the ballot box. And that is something that we say every day. If you vote, that the vote will be counted. It's very important. So there are different challenges that we face, but the big news will be this, that we're going to have some new parties in the parliament. We're going to be a third party. And yes, we're going to start for having a truly opposition that has been missed in Albania for years.
And people should vote for who they like, not just, vote for who you want to
Yeah,
vote for.
they should have trust.
for,
They
oh,
should
well,
have
I'm
trust
going
that their
to-
vote should be counted. This
Yes.
is very important to say this.
Love Dream, the results.
The most important thing for me is to have a fair and calm elections. And I would like to see more in the campaign trail, more explanation of what political parties offer. I'd like to see more scrutiny about the promises that they are making, because often it feels as if they are just plugging numbers from the air
Yes.
and making them up because they look nice, and normally the bigger number is always nicer unless it's tax. Tax always has to be lower. But wages, average wages,
Higher,
earnings, minimum wage, etc., spend in the NHS, spend in the
Pensions.
education service. Pension is another one, although both sides, I think they seem to agree. But for me, the most important thing is that people vote freely for whoever they are convinced from more than the other. And the most important thing is that we get a stable parliament and a stable government that can govern the country potentially for 4 years, unless they have to be short-lived and would have to get earlier elections. In terms of polls, because I'm not a pollster, and of course I'm biased because I'm a member of the Socialist Party, and immediately I should say, yes, the Socialist Party will win, but that's my wish. The truth will be in the hands of the people who will actually cast their vote calmly, and hopefully their vote will be counted transparently and correctly. Whatever they put in, they'll get out. That is what is most important. I think, and it's general knowledge now in Albania, that the SP stands for a 4th term. I know democratically that shouldn't be the case, especially in a small country. More than 2 terms are
Dangerous.
They start, well, that's your term. But well, I would say dangerous, but I would say you need to think really hard that have to produce something very special, which I haven't seen for the past 12 years, or the previous 8 years before the 8 years, or the 8 years before the
Since
8 years
democracy.
since democracy was introduced. But the most important thing is that we have a stable government, a stable parliament, and above all, a system that, because once the elections are over, the full attention will come to what have we done as a government, as a parliament. Because let's never forget that one of the worst diseases of democracy is corruption and organized crime. That has been going on since 1992. And yes, we're fighting it now, and it's the new judiciary that is fighting it very hard, but I always consider it to be a small baby that is just crawling, not even walking yet. And often you see it at the very beginning of the political campaign, they were trading wars with each other. They were attacking effectively the new judiciary. Thank God they've understood it now.
Yes.
The language is far more civil now than what it was 3 weeks ago. And that is what will keep the people, will give people hope, because there should be a total end to impunity. It shouldn't matter whether I am a prime minister, a president, a minister, a member of parliament, a mayor, or a criminal with a PhD, that I become untouchable. If I commit a crime, I should know where to go.
On that note, thank you to you both. Godspeed
Thank
at the
you.
ballot boxes with your own votes. Good luck in the campaign. Good luck with what comes next. Thank you both very much for your
It was a
time.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for this week. You can follow Inside Albania every Saturday on Euronews Albania at 4 o'clock on our YouTube channel on demand. That's Euronews Albania, and across all major podcasting platforms. Until next time, Miro Pavshim.